Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast.
Great to be here.
Get ready, because today we're diving deep into a story that, honestly, it still gives me the chills. We're talking about the Enfield Poltergeist.
Ah, yes, Enfield is one of those cases, isn't it? The ones everyone sort of knows, but the details, they get fuzzy.
Exactly. So picture this. It's 1977, North London. A pretty normal council house on Green Street.
284 Green Street, Brimsdown, to be precise. And it becomes this absolute focal point for some truly bizarre claims.
And right at the heart of it all are two young sisters, Janet, who was about 11, and her older sister, Margaret, 13.
Right. And it didn't start with, green slime or anything too dramatic. More insidious, maybe. Furniture moving on its own, strange knocking sounds.
Yeah, the kind of thing that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. It got so bad that their mom, Peggy Hodgson, actually called the police.
Which is quite a step, isn't it? You don't call the cops for a creaky floorboard.
No way. And get this, one of the police constables who responded, she actually filed a report saying she saw a chair wobble and then just slide across the floor.
Slide on its own.
Apparently. She couldn't explain it, just witnessed it. Imagine being that officer writing that report.
That initial police report, it adds a certain weight, doesn't it? It wasn't just the family saying things happened right from the start.
Definitely. But things didn't stop there, did they? It wasn't just a sliding chair.
Oh, not even close. Over the next year and a half, maybe 18 months, the claims just escalated wildly.
We're talking, what kind of stuff?
Full disembodied voices were reported.
Wow.
Loud noises, bangs, toys apparently flying across rooms, chairs getting flipped over.
Okay, that's moving beyond creepy house territory.
And then the big one,
Yeah.
claims the girls themselves were levitating, just floating.
Levitation, right. That's always the one that grabs you, isn't it? It sounds so impossible.
It does. And look, it wasn't just the family claiming this stuff. That's important. Over 30 different people, neighbors, journalists who were practically living there at times, paranormal investigators, they all reported witnessing something.
30 people. Wow. What were they seeing? Consistent things.
Pretty consistent, yeah. Heavy furniture moving seemingly by itself, objects being thrown, hearing those knocks and bangs, hearing a weird, gruff voice. And some reported seeing the girls apparently levitating. Several feet off the ground, according to some accounts.
It's just hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Seeing a heavy chest of drawers move on its own.
Exactly. And the press went mad for it, of course. The Daily Mirror especially covered it constantly. It was a huge story.
I bet. So you mentioned a voice, a gruff voice.
Yes. And this is maybe one of the strangest, most specific parts of the whole case. The voice became associated with someone called Bill Wilkins.
Bill Wilkins, okay.
Now, this didn't come out immediately. Years later, actually. There was a BBC series called Hauntings, and then one of the main investigators, Maurice Grosse, was on an LBC radio talk show. Right.
And a listener calls in, and he says, that voice. I recognize that voice.
Way, seriously.
Seriously. He claims it's the voice of his dead father, William Charles Wilkins.
Okay, hang on. His father.
Yes. And he says his father, Bill Wilkins, used to live in that exact same house. 284 Green Street.
Get out! That's incredible. Did he have any more details?
Oh, yeah. Specific details. He said his father had gone blind before he died, suffered a brain hemorrhage, and died downstairs.
In a chair. In that house.
On June 20th, 1963.
Downstairs. In a chair. Just like the voice sometimes sounded like it was coming from. Wow. That is properly chilling.
Isn't it? It adds this whole other layer. It's not just random noises anymore. It's potentially tied to a specific person, a specific tragedy in that house.
It really makes you pause. Even if you're skeptical, that connection it's something else. You can see why people are absolutely captivated.
Completely. All these eyewitnesses, the police report, the levitation claims, and then this incredibly specific spooky voice identification. It paints a powerful picture. But there's always a but with these stories, isn't there?
There usually is. And Enfield is no exception. Despite all the seemingly compelling evidence, there's a whole other side to this. A side full of doubt, questions, and accusations of, fraud.
Right. Even the investigators themselves weren't all on the same page, were they? The SPR, the Society for Psychical Research.
Exactly. You had Maurice Grosse, who we mentioned, and Lyon Playfair. He wrote a famous book about it. This house is haunted. They were heavily involved, spent a lot of time there.
And they believed it was real. Mostly.
They seem to lean heavily towards genuine phenomena. Playfair acknowledged the girls might have played tricks sometimes, maybe exaggerated things when reporters were around, but they both seemed convinced there was something else going on. An entity, they sometimes called it.
An entity,
Oh.
okay. But not everyone in the SPR agreed.
Not at all. You had Other members, like Anita Gregory and John Beloff, who looked at the same evidence and came to very different conclusions.
What do they think?
Gregory was particularly skeptical. She observed the girls closely and found their behavior suspicious. She strongly suspected they staged incidents, especially when journalists were expected.
And Beloff.
Beloff thought Janet, the younger sister, might actually be practicing ventriloquism for the voices.
Ventriloquism, so faking the Bill Wilkins voice.
That was his suggestion, yeah. Both he and Gregory ultimately concluded that it was likely the girls were just playing tricks. Elaborate ones, perhaps, but tricks nonetheless.
So a major split within the very group investigating it. That's significant.
It really is. And the skepticism wasn't limited to paranormal circles. Experts from other fields weighed in, too.
Like who?
Well, stage magicians, for instance. People who know deception inside and out. Milbourne Christopher, a well-known magician, investigated.
And what was his verdict?
He found zero evidence of anything paranormal, nothing he couldn't explain. His conclusion, it was basically the antics of a little girl who wanted to cause trouble. He called Janet very, very clever, which, coming from a magician.
Yeah, that carries some weight, implying she was good at fooling people.
Precisely. And it wasn't just general magic, remember the voice?
Wilkins, yeah.
A professional ventriloquist, Ray Allen, also went to the house. He listened to Janet producing those male voices. He concluded they were just vocal tricks, things a talented kid could learn to do, not a ghostly manifestation.
So even the really chilling voice evidence had a potential mundane explanation offered by an expert.
Exactly. It starts to build a counter-narrative, doesn't it?
It does. What about the photos? The levitation ones are so famous. They look pretty dramatic.
They do. But again, skeptics jumped on those. Joe Nickell from CSI Cop, now CSI, is a prominent investigator of paranormal claims.
Right. I know the name. What did you say?
He looked at the photos, particularly the one where Janet is sort of horizontal midair above her bed.
Yeah, that one.
And he basically said, look, she's just bouncing on the bed, like using it as a trampoline caught mid-bounce.
Oh, right. That does make sense when you think about it. Less dramatic, but plausible.
Very plausible. Another investigator noted that Janet was actually a school sports champion, good at gymnastics. He apparently got photos suggesting the levitation was more like athletic jumps when the girls thought no one was properly watching.
Gymnastics,
Yeah.
okay. That definitely puts a different spin on levitation.
Doesn't it? And Nickell also pointed out other things, like Janet was caught bending spoons and trying to bend an iron bar on camera when she likely thought the camera wasn't recording.
Caught faking thing.
Caught red-handed, according to Nickell and others. There were videotape setups, sometimes running without the girls knowing.
That's pretty damaging to the idea it was all genuine.
It is. And the girls themselves, particularly later in life, actually admitted to faking some of the incidents.
They admitted it.
Yes. Janet reportedly said maybe about 2% was faked, just to see if the investigators would catch them, she claimed.
2%. That seems low, given the skepticism. But still, an admission.
It's an admission, yeah. Though believers might say, well, that still leaves 98% unexplained. Skeptics would argue if they faked some, why not all?
It really complicates things. You know, if you're finding this deep dive into the Enfield mystery compelling and you want more stories that make you think, definitely hit that subscribe button for Tell Me More. We explore all sorts of fascinating narratives here.
Good point. Because this case, despite all the counterarguments, it just refuses to fade away. It's lodged itself firmly in our sort of cultural imagination.
Totally. It's amazing how many times it's been revisited. Documentaries.
Loads. BBC Radio back in '78, Channel 4 in 2007, even a very recent Apple TV miniseries that actually used some of the original audio recordings Grosse made in the house.
Using the actual tapes. Wow. And then there's the fictional stuff too, right?
Oh, yeah. TV series like The Enfield Haunting on Sky Living a few years back. There was even a stage play recently.
And that infamous BBC thing, Ghost Watch.
Ugh, Ghost Watch. 1992. Presented as a live investigation, but it was actually a scripted drama. It terrified people, caused a huge controversy. It was heavily inspired by Enfield.
I remember hearing about that. And of course, the big one for many people.
The Conjuring 2.
Yep. The Hollywood blockbuster version, focusing on Ed and Lorraine Warren's involvement.
Which is interesting because the extent of the Warrens' actual involvement at Enfield is also debated. Some say they were barely there, others feature them prominently. Playfair, for instance, was quite dismissive of their role.
So even the pop culture adaptations
Mhm.
have layers of debate around them. It never ends with this case.
It really doesn't. You've got this mountain of alleged phenomena witnessed by numerous people, the chilling Bill Wilkins voice connection.
And then you have the investigators disagreeing amongst themselves, expert magicians and ventriloquists saying nope, photographic evidence being explained away, and even admissions of fakery from the girls.
It's a perfect storm of belief versus skepticism. It pushes you to think about, well, how reliable are eyewitnesses, especially in strange or stressful situations?
And the power of suggestion, right? Once the idea of a haunting takes hold.
Absolutely. How much did the intense media attention influence things? Did it encourage more performances? Did it genuinely amplify something that was already there? We just don't know for sure.
So after all this, where do you land? What do you listening make of it all? Genuine poltergeist, elaborate hoax, or maybe something in between?
It's tempting to want a neat answer, isn't it? But Enfield doesn't really offer one. It remains controversial, debated, and honestly deeply unsettling, whatever you believe.
It really does. The story endures, I think, because it touches on so many things: fear of the unknown, childhood, deception, belief. It makes you wonder what other stories are out there just waiting to be examined, maybe holding secrets we haven't quite figured out yet.
Perhaps the real mystery isn't just what happened at 284 Green Street, but why these stories continue to hold such power over us decades later.